All right, so today we are taking a deep dive into Rory Sutherland's Alchemy, the surprising power of ideas that don't make sense.
Ooh, interesting.
Have you read this one?
I have, yeah. It's a good one.
It really is. It's all about what Sutherland calls psychologic, which are the fascinating and often illogical ways that our minds work.
Yeah, and how those quirks shape our choices.
Right.
And can even lead to some unexpected success.
Yeah. So are you ready to kind of explore that a little bit today?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Let's get into it.
Okay, perfect. So Sutherland, his central argument is that our irrational side, it isn't a flaw. It's like this hidden code that we need to figure out.
Yeah, and I think he has a really unique perspective on this because of his background in advertising.
Yeah.
Like he spent his whole career thinking about
Messaging
and how to craft messages that really hit home and really tap into
psychology.
Yeah, those deeper psychological levels.
Yeah. So
And I think that's so valuable for anyone, really, but especially if you're trying to understand why people do the things they do, including yourself.
Right, exactly. And one of the best examples, or most interesting examples I think that he uses is the success of Red Bull.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the taste initially turned people off.
Yeah.
Traditional market research would have been like, no way.
Yeah, it defied all logic, right?
Yeah.
Like, you would think that would be like, okay, we need to change this or we need to tweak this.
Yeah.
But it became a global phenomenon.
It did.
And what I think is so interesting about that is it really highlights the limits of typical market research in economic theory.
Right.
Because a lot of times they're built on this idea that we're rational beings.
Right.
When in fact, we're not.
And we make decisions based on emotion.
Totally.
All the time.
I mean, it's like, yeah, they're looking at human motivation through like, I don't know, a foggy lens or something.
Totally.
It's not clear.
Yeah. So instead of, fighting this irrationality, he suggests we embrace it.
Yeah, like work with it.
Yeah, work with it, figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think that was really interesting because he compares this idea of traditional market research and economic theory. He compares it to looking through regulation issue binoculars.
Oh, I like that.
So you only get this limited, often distorted view.
Right, and it's easy to miss the bigger picture.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
So if we can better understand the real drivers behind, what we choose, maybe we can open up this whole new level of problem-solving personal effectiveness.
Totally, yeah. Like tap into a different kind of potential, I guess.
Right. And this is interesting, this isn't just about like individual success or whatever. He uses Donald Trump as an example for bringing back manufacturing jobs.
Oh, interesting.
Now, I don't think he's endorsing...
Analyses or anything like that?
No. But he's using this as an example to highlight how even a seemingly illogical approach can be surprisingly effective.
Right, yeah. And it makes you really question your assumptions, doesn't it?
It totally does, because he's arguing that it's not always about spreadsheets and data points.
Mm-hmm.
It's about emotion. It's about perception. Even, something he calls signaling, which I think we're going to get into.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. So
there's actually a really interesting charity experiment he talks about.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember that, where they changed things like paper quality and even like envelope orientation on these donation requests.
Yes.
And you would think like...
those details, you wouldn't think.
You would think that those things wouldn't matter, but...
they matter?
The results were huge.
Yeah.
Like, people were way more likely to donate when the envelope, felt really nice or looked like it was hand-delivered.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
Right. So that makes you really question, what other cues are we missing?
Totally.
That are influencing our choices every day.
It's a good reminder that we are all susceptible to these things. Yeah. Even when we think we're being totally illogical.
Right. Well, I think that's a good place to kind of pause.
Oh, and we'll pick it up in the next part.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we were talking about signaling right at the end of the last part.
Yeah. So Sutherland, he argues that we're constantly sending and receiving these signals,
right?
Often without even realizing it.
Yeah.
And those signals, they influence how we see the world.
Totally.
And how we make decisions.
It's like this underlying language we all speak.
Right. Exactly.
Like it's conveying a meaning that goes beyond just like the words or the logic.
Yeah. Think about something like a wedding invitation. Why do people spend so much money on fancy paper or calligraphy?
Well, it's about making a good impression. Right?
Yeah, I guess.
You want to show they're putting effort into it.
Exactly, yeah. It's a form of what Sutherland calls costly signaling.
Uh-huh.
The expense itself sends a message, right?
Right.
It says something about their commitment, the importance of the event, even their trustworthiness.
Yeah.
So even if it seems irrational from a purely financial perspective,
it makes perfect sense from a signaling standpoint.
So it's not just about, like, the invitation itself. It's about what it communicates.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm starting to see how this applies to other things, too, like luxury goods.
Oh, yeah. First,
Not just about function. They're about,
status.
yeah, or taste.
Yeah, exactly. Like a Rolex.
Yeah.
It's not just a watch. It's a symbol.
Symbol of success.
Yeah, yeah.
He also uses the example of the London black cab drivers, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
I mean, they spend years memorizing.
Every street, every landmark.
Even with GPS.
Yeah, it seems kind of counterintuitive.
It totally does.
In this day and age.
Yeah.
But, you're paying for that expertise.
The reassurance.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, they know what they're doing.
Exactly. And people are willing to pay a premium for that.
Yeah. It's like it differentiates them in a way.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It sets them apart.
In this,
Crowded market.
crowded market. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, knowledge, it's like a badge of honor.
A signal.
Yeah, a signal that sets them apart. And, it reminds me of how we choose brands, too.
Yeah.
Like, we stick with brands that we trust, right?
Right.
Because they have a reputation, whether it's for quality or certain values that we identify with.
Right.
And so it's like a shortcut
Yeah.
in this world that's like overflowing with choices.
And like the brand name itself, it becomes like this signal, a guarantee of, I don't know.
A certain level of quality.
Yeah.
You're not going to get totally ripped off.
Right, exactly. So it's really fascinating how those signals influence our choices.
Yeah, even when we don't realize it.
Yeah. So speaking of hidden influences, let's talk about psychophysics.
Okay, yeah.
Because this is where things get a little more interesting.
Yeah, this is where it gets kind of trippy.
Yeah, it's like, so he explores how our perception can actually override objective reality.
That's true.
So what I see might not be what's actually there.
It might not be.
That's kind of freaky.
Yeah, well, think about the colors that you see on, like, your TV or your computer screen.
Okay.
They seem to display this huge range of colors, right?
Yeah.
But those screens are only producing combinations of red, green, and blue light.
Oh, okay.
So our brains create the perception of other colors, like purple, based on the combination of those primary colors.
Wait, so I'm seeing a color that's not really there, like my mind's just filling in the gaps.
Yeah, pretty much.
Whoa.
It's crazy, right?
That's wild.
It shows how our senses can be manipulated.
Yeah.
And how our brains are constantly, like, interpreting and making sense of the information they receive.
So this has huge implications. I mean,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
design, marketing,
Yeah,
public policy even.
definitely. Yeah.
So if you understand how perception works, you can design things that are like more appealing.
Yeah, or more effective.
Yeah.
You can use those principles to create, experiences that resonate with people on, like, a much deeper level.
It's not just about the logic. It's about how we perceive the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So speaking of decisions, he also introduces this concept of satisficing,
Oh, yeah.
which I thought was...
That's one of my favorite concepts from the book, actually.
Yeah.
It's the idea that instead of, always searching for the absolute best optimal solution, we often just aim for something that's good enough.
So are you saying it's okay to settle?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily settling.
Okay.
I think sometimes chasing perfection can actually be paralyzing
Oh, interesting.
and can lead to less satisfying outcomes.
So give me an example.
Okay, so think about, like, choosing a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
You could spend hours researching every single option in your city,
Right.
trying to find the absolute best one, reading all the reviews.
Yeah.
Or you could pick a place that has decent reviews, looks good to you,
Right.
and you'll probably have a great meal without all that stress,
Yeah.
So
it's about like being strategic with your energy.
Right, and recognizing that sometimes good enough really is the most efficient and even enjoyable approach.
It frees up your time and your mental space.
Totally, yeah.
Okay, so how does this apply to other things?
Well, he uses the example of scoring systems in sports
Okay.
to kind of illustrate this point. Like, imagine if tennis had a scoring system like basketball, where points are constantly racking up.
Oh, that would be...
It would be exhausting.
Yeah, too much.
Right.
Yeah.
So the excitement in tennis, it comes from the back and forth, the smaller wins and losses
Right.
that build to the overall outcome. It's not just about reaching the highest possible score.
Right.
And I think that principle, it applies to so much in life,
Totally.
It's about finding that balance between effort and outcome and understanding that sometimes a good enough solution really is the smartest choice.
It lets us be more present.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, okay. So this has been incredibly eye-opening, it really is.
I know, it's a good book.
Yeah, it feels like we're really kind of starting to see it like, I don't know, the matrix
Yeah.
behind everyday decisions and behaviors.
Yeah.
So now I want to get into what about the power of the unconscious mind?
Okay. Yeah.
Because he talks about like hacking it to influence behavior,
He does, yeah.
which I think is really interesting.
And he uses the example of the placebo effect, which I think is a really powerful example of that.
Yeah.
Because the fascinating thing about the placebo effect is it's not just about belief.
Okay.
Like, studies have shown that placebos can actually trigger real physiological changes in the body.
Wow.
Like, they can affect hormone levels, immune responses.
So it's like our minds really have this incredible power
Yeah, it's
to
amazing.
influence our well-being.
And I think Sutherland has this really intriguing theory
Okay.
about why placebos work.
Okay.
And he thinks that they work best when they're a little bit absurd or illogical.
Okay, so
And his argument is that our subconscious minds, they're more attuned to things that are unexpected or unconventional.
okay.
So if something is too straightforward,
Our conscious mind is like
our conscious mind might dismiss it.
that's too easy.
Yeah, it's like, that can't be effective. It's too simple.
It needs to be more complex.
Right.
Okay, so a little bit of mystery
Mm-hmm.
can actually enhance this.
That seems to be the case, yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting.
It's as if the illogical nature of the treatment
Mm-hmm.
helps to bypass our conscious skepticism
Okay.
and tap into like a deeper, more primal level of belief.
That is so interesting.
It's pretty amazing.
It really is. It's just that, like, our unconscious minds aren't always bound by logic,
Right. Exactly.
which opens up so many possibilities.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Wow. So we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
Psychologic, signaling, psychophysics, even the placebo effect.
Yeah, it's really amazing how much our unconscious minds are at play.
Right. In, like, everything we do.
Yeah, pretty much. Everyday life.
Yeah.
And it just highlights how we're not always the rational decision makers that we, think we are.
Right.
But I think what's so interesting is that Sutherland, like, he doesn't see that as a limitation.
Okay.
He sees it as an opportunity.
Okay, so how can we actually put this into practice then?
Well, I think he gives some really good advice in the book.
Okay.
He really encourages us to, first of all, like, question our assumptions
Okay.
and reframe problems in order to come up with more creative solutions.
So kind of think outside the box.
Yeah, exactly. And not get stuck in those same old patterns.
Like, do something different.
Yeah, and look for different perspectives.
It's like that saying, if you always do what you've always done,
Yeah.
you'll always get what you've always gotten.
Exactly.
You got to shake it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And he also talks about using what he calls benign bullshit.
Okay, I love that phrase.
I know, right?
But I think, what does he mean by that?
Okay, so basically what he means is using psychology in kind of like a clever way to nudge people towards certain behaviors.
So it's not just like the logical reason, it's appealing to
It's like, yeah, you got to appeal to people's emotions.
your unconscious biases.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So, for example, like, let's say you're trying to encourage people to eat healthier, right?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of just focusing on the health benefits,
Okay.
you might want to frame the message around something more appealing, like taste or convenience.
So instead of saying, eat broccoli, it's good for you.
Right.
It's like, try this delicious roasted broccoli with garlic and Parmesan.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a different way of...
It's all about presentation.
Yeah, yeah.
It's about making those healthy choices
Mm.
like more appealing and accessible
Right.
by understanding how people actually make decisions.
Not just how they should.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, okay. He also really emphasizes being mindful of the power of signaling.
Yeah, for
To
sure.
both the signals we send and the ones that we receive.
Yes, it's like being a good detective, I guess.
Yeah.
Like reading between the lines.
Yeah.
Understanding those unspoken messages.
Yeah, because we're constantly
Oh, yeah, all the time.
sending and receiving those.
Mm-hmm.
Think about how you present yourself
Right.
in different situations. Are you sending the signals you intend to send?
Yeah, that's a good question to ask yourself.
Right, because I know I've made assumptions about people before based on,
Clothes.
clothes, body language, tone of voice,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
all of it.
It all plays a role.
Yeah. And on the flip side, it's like, are you aware of the signals you're putting out there?
Yeah.
Especially if you're trying to, persuade someone.
Influence people, yeah.
Right. Okay, so interesting. And of course, we can't forget about satisficing.
Oh, that's a good one.
This idea of,
Letting go of that need to find the perfect solution.
yeah, being okay with good enough.
Good enough. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's the best approach, right?
I think so, yeah. It frees up your time and your energy.
So much of what we've talked about today has been about, like, awareness, right? Like recognizing these hidden forces that shape our thoughts and our actions.
Totally. Yeah.
It feels like we've been given a new lens to see the world through.
Yeah, like a new perspective.
Yeah.
And with that awareness comes the power to make more conscious choices, I think.
Right.
So we're not just like reacting to things anymore.
Yeah,
we're actually understanding like why we do the things we do.
Okay. So I want to wrap up our deep dive of alchemy by leaving our listeners with a final thought to ponder.
Okay.
Now that you are aware of psychologic, what seemingly irrational behaviors or beliefs might actually be serving you well?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Right. Like maybe some of those quirks aren't flaws after all. Maybe they're strategies that we've developed.
Yeah, that have helped us get to where we are.
Right, exactly. So, and if you want to explore these ideas further...
Definitely check out the book.
Definitely.
Rory Sutherland's Alchemy.
It's a good one.
It's a fascinating read.
It really is.
Yeah.
So until next time.
Happy diving.